On July 25, 2017, in the Yemeni city of Aden, Yemeni police arrested Nimesha Priya, a nurse from Kerala, India, along with her friend Hanan, for the brutal murder of a man named Abdul Mahdi, a local broker. This murder was so gruesome that it quickly made headlines in international media. Reports stated that the Kerala nurse had killed her husband, Talal Mahdi, and hid his dismembered body in a water tank. When this news reached Tommy Thomas, who lived in Thodupuja, Idukki, Kerala, he was in utter disbelief. The Malayali nurse mentioned in the news was none other than his wife, Nimesha Priya, who had been living in Yemen for several years. Tommy couldn't comprehend why and how his wife had been accused of murdering her husband when he was alive and well in India. He tried contacting Nimisha, but her phone was switched off. The news left him with many questions. Who was Talal Mahdi? What was his connection to Nimisha? There were too many unknowns. Tommy and their 5-year-old daughter, Michelle, were unaware that this case would stretch on for years. 1 year after Nimisha's arrest, in 2018, the Yemeni court declared her guilty. By 2020, she was sentenced to death. In 2023, Yemen's Supreme Judicial Council upheld the death sentence, rejecting her appeals. Despite numerous efforts to seek justice, Nimisha remained in jail for years. Her last hope lay in a mercy petition. Unfortunately, on December 30th, 2024, after 7 years of imprisonment, Yemen's President Rashad al-Alimi rejected her petition, sealing her fate with an execution order to be carried out within a month. Nimesha Priya, born in Pala, Kerala, had come to Yemen as a nurse to fulfill her dreams. Initially, everything seemed to go well. However, over time, circumstances drastically changed, leading her from being a dedicated nurse to a convicted murderer on death row. What went wrong in Nimesha's life that pushed her to this fate? Welcome to this investigation, the case of Nimesha Priya. Nimisha came from a poor family. Her parents were daily wage laborers, but she was bright from a young age. Local church support helped her pursue school education and a diploma in nursing. However, she couldn't clear school exams, which hindered her chances of securing a job as a nurse in Kerala. Determined to improve her life, 19-year-old Nimisha left Kerala in 2008 with big dreams and headed to Yemen. Before leaving, she promised her mother that their difficult days would soon end. In Yemen, Nimisha started working as a nurse in a government hospital in Sana'a. Her job provided financial stability, improving her family's condition back home. In 2011, her family arranged her marriage to Tommy Thomas, an auto rickshaw driver in Kerala. After the wedding, Tommy joined Nimisha in Yemen in 2012, and they began a new chapter together. Nimisha resumed her job in a private hospital in Sana'a, while Tommy found work as an electrician's assistant. Later that year, their daughter was born. As their responsibilities increased, so did their financial burdens. By April 2014, Tommy returned to Kerala with their daughter due to the rising expenses, leaving Nimisha alone in Yemen to manage her job and family's financial needs. Nimisha's skills and good nature earned her respect among her patients and hospital staff. She believed she could provide her family with a better life if she opened her own clinic in Yemen. She discussed this with Tommy, who supported her idea. However, Yemeni law required a local citizen as a business partner. Nimisha suggested Talal Abdul Mahdi, a Yemeni national who owned a clothing shop near the hospital where she worked. Talal's wife had delivered her baby at the same hospital, and Nimisha had a decent acquaintance with him. Initially, Talal helped Nimisha and Tommy secure a license for their clinic. By 2014, their dream came true as they opened a 14-bed clinic named Al-Aman Medical Clinic. The clinic started generating significant revenue, earning around $1,000 daily. In January 2015, Nimisha returned to Kerala with Talal for her daughter's baptism. Tommy warmly welcomed Talal, hosting him at their home and even taking him sightseeing. Talal became like family, gaining their trust and learning intimate details about their lives. However, a month later, civil war broke out in Yemen. Within 2 months, the Indian government evacuated thousands of citizens from Yemen. Nimisha chose to stay back, as she had recently started her clinic and had substantial loans to repay. With no new visas being issued for Yemen, Tommy and their daughter remained in India, while Nimisha stayed in Yemen with Talal. As the war worsened, Talal's greed began to show. Seeing the clinic's profits, he believed he deserved an equal share. Knowing Nimisha depended on him and trusted him deeply, he exploited the situation. He registered new clinic vehicles in his name and manipulated paperwork to add himself as a 33% shareholder in the clinic. Nimisha remained unaware of his deceit for some time. Talal's greed didn't stop there. He began keeping profits from the clinic's cash register for himself and spread rumors among the staff that Nimisha was his wife. When Nimisha discovered his actions, she confronted him. Talal justified his behavior, claiming it was to protect her from being harassed as a single woman. But this explanation didn't sit well with Nimisha. What unfolded next would lead to a tragic and horrifying series of events, culminating in the crime that shocked the world. This story didn't stop here. Talal's interference in every matter of the clinic kept increasing, as if the clinic belonged to him and Nimesha was his wife. Whether it was keeping the clinic's profits to himself every month or making management decisions on his own, even the clinic staff began to feel that Talal was Nimesha's husband. This was all part of Talal's well-thought-out plan, which he had been plotting for some time. When he stayed at Nimesha's house in Kerala, he had secretly taken a photo from Thomas and Nimesha's wedding album. He morphed the photo, replacing Thomas's face with his own, and used this altered photo to create a fake marriage certificate in Yemen. According to Yemeni law, this made Nimesha legally Talal's wife. Talal already had local support, and now through forgery, even Yemeni law was in his favor. Nimesha found herself in a situation like a bird trapped in a cage without any doors. By 2016, the situation had worsened drastically. Talal openly abused and physically assaulted Nimesha in front of the hospital staff. One day, overwhelmed by the situation, Nimesha filed a complaint against Talal at Sana'a police station. However, as Nimesha explained, under Yemeni law, the police accused both of creating public unrest and jailed them for 6 days. Later, Talal submitted the fake marriage certificate in court, presenting it as proof of their husband and wife relationship. The court failed to identify the forgery and accepted the certificate, leading to their release. After being released, Talal realized that even the court had now accepted the fake certificate, and he began exploiting the situation further. Nimesha was living alone in a rented house in Sana'a, where Talal would come every day in a drunken state. He would abuse her, attempt to force physical relations, and sometimes even bring his friends along, trying to coerce Nimesha into spending the night with them. When she refused, he would beat her mercilessly. Nimesha often had to flee the house to save her life. In a country like Yemen, where it was rare to see women outside at night, Nimesha wandered the streets, trying to protect her dignity and life. To prevent her from leaving the country, Talal had seized her passport. Nimesha had rented a house near the clinic for staff members who came from remote areas of the city. However, Talal took over that house too and moved his wife and children there. Talal also harassed the female staff. Nimesha endured all of this alone, with no one to support her. Talal kept all the money that belonged to Nimesha, giving her only a minimal amount to survive. She had to keep 26 SIM cards because Talal would often break her SIM cards to prevent her from contacting her family. Whenever she could, Nimesha would secretly call Thomas and her daughter, but these calls would last only a minute or less. Occasionally, she sent voice notes too. Nimesha knew that Thomas couldn't help her, no matter how much he wanted to. During this time, Talal was jailed several times, sometimes due to Nimesha's complaints and other times due to fraud involving money and land. On one occasion, the court released him on the condition that he return Nimesha's money, car, and passport and apologize for all his lies. However, as soon as he was released, Talal resumed his abusive behavior. Nimesha realized that her only escape from this nightmare was to leave everything behind in Yemen and return to her family in India. But for this, she needed her passport, which Talal refused to return despite countless requests. Nimesha revealed that the jail where Talal was often imprisoned was near her clinic. The warden of that jail regularly visited the clinic for checkups. It was this warden who suggested an idea to Nimesha. She could render Talal unconscious and, once unconscious, the warden would make him reveal where he had hidden her passport. The plan was never to kill him, Nimesha believed that this way she could retrieve her passport without harming Talal. Since the police warden himself was offering help, she thought there would be no problem. But things didn't go as Nimesha had thought. In July 2017, Talal, who was addicted to drugs, came to Nimesha's house intoxicated as usual. Seizing the opportunity, she injected him with a sedative. However, the injection had no effect on him that day. The next day, when Talal again came to her house in a drugged state, Nimesha injected him with the sedative once more. A few minutes later, Talal fell to the ground and started screaming loudly. Suddenly, his screaming stopped and he became motionless. Terrified, Nimesha checked his pulse and realized that Talal had died. It appeared that a reaction between the sedative and the drugs in his system had caused his death. Nimesha was shattered. She was deeply terrified because she never anticipated something like this would happen. Her only intention was to extract information from Talal about her passport, but now, unwillingly, she had become a murderer. Nimesha immediately called out to her friend Hanan, who was a nurse and lived on the ground floor of Nimesha's residence. Hanan was privy to every detail of Nimesha's life. She had witnessed the torture inflicted on Nimesha by Talal. The mental trauma caused by Talal often led Nimesha to experience anxiety attacks, which later escalated into panic attacks. Hanan tried to calm Nimesha and said that they needed to dispose of the body as soon as possible. It was Hanan who dismembered Talal's body into small pieces, stuffed them into a sack, and hid them in the water tank of the house. Since Nimesha had taken anxiety medication, her memory of the details of that time was unclear. Following this, Nimesha and Hanan fled the house and escaped to Aden City, located 380 kilometers away from Sana'a. However, just a few days later, on July 25, 2017, Yemeni police arrested both of them. The police were tipped off when Nimesha's neighbors complained about a foul smell emanating from the water tank. Upon inspection, they discovered Talal's body dismembered into pieces. The biggest rumor that spread across every news channel about this case was how a nurse from Kerala killed her husband and dismembered his body. When this news reached Thomas, the ground beneath his feet seemed to vanish. Thomas tried every possible way to contact Nimesha, but neither he nor any of her relatives in Kerala could reach her. Meanwhile, Nimesha and Hanan were sent to the Sana'a city jail. A few days after being imprisoned, Nimesha was allowed access to a phone and managed to contact Thomas. The court proceedings in Yemen were heavily biased against Nimesha. She didn't receive any legal support or an assigned lawyer to fight her case. Representing herself, Nimesha narrated how Talal had forged a marriage certificate and introduced her as his wife. She explained that the identification on the marriage certificate could easily be proven fake, as it carried her photo with a Muslim name, which could be cross-checked with her passport. Nimesha requested the court to interrogate her neighbors, who could testify how Talal tortured her daily. Despite all these clear facts, the trial court convicted Nimesha in 2018. The lawyer assigned to her appeal was inexperienced and didn't argue the case properly. From police investigations to court proceedings, all the paperwork was in Arabic. Nimesha couldn't understand what she was signing. Eventually, disregarding due process, the trial court rejected her appeal and in 2020 sentenced Hanan to life imprisonment and Nimesha to the death penalty. Nimesha's junior lawyer wasn't eligible to appeal to the apex court. Without proper legal support, Nimesha appealed against her death sentence to Yemen's Supreme Judicial Council. Unfortunately, 7 years later, on December 30, 2024, Yemeni President Rashad al-Alimi rejected her mercy petition and ordered her execution within a month. However, Yemen's embassy later claimed that the president hadn't approved Nimesha's execution. They stated that the decision-making power rested with the Houthi authorities, as the region where Nimesha's case was being tried was under Houthi control. Under Sharia law, which is followed in Houthi-controlled areas, a convict can escape punishment if compensation, known as blood money, is paid to the victim's family. An NRI businessman and social activist, Samuel Jerome Bhaskar, who had been advocating for Nimesha's justice since 2017, formed the Save Nimesha Priya International Action Council. Through this council, he initiated crowdfunding to raise the blood money. However, The challenge was finding someone to negotiate with Talal's family. For this, the Indian embassy appointed advocate Abdullah Amir as the negotiator. Abdullah demanded a total of $40,000 as a pre-negotiation fee, with the first installment of $20,000 already paid to him. However, Abdullah halted the negotiation talks, demanding the remaining amount before proceeding further. The exact amount of blood money demanded by Talal's family has not been officially disclosed. Speculative figures are circulating in the media. After the death penalty decision on December 30th, 2024, the following day, Randhir Jaiswal, the official spokesperson for India's Ministry of External Affairs, tweeted that the government was aware of Nimesha Priya's case and was ready to provide all possible assistance. Currently, Nimesha's life rests in the hands of Talal's family. She remains unaware of the developments outside the prison walls. Subhash Chandran, the lawyer representing Nimesha, emphasized that only the Indian government's support could make the negotiations possible. Despite the many twists and turns, Nimesha's family hasn't lost hope. Thomas expressed confidence that Nimesha's life would be saved and that their 13-year-old daughter, who has been separated from her mother for years, would reunite with her. Nimesha's mother, Prema Kumari, has been in Yemen since April 2024, trying every possible way to save her daughter's life. Despite being allowed to meet her daughter only twice in the past 9 months, Prema continues to instill hope and courage in Nimesha's heart. The entire nation now asks the same question: can we save Nimesha Priya? Thank you for your love and support. Please subscribe to help us continue our work.